Hello, sir.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hi. I'm sorry, how to address you?
Sorry, my headset was just a little bit tangled.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
How are you guys?
Very good.
Good.
Good too.
I'm glad to hear.
So maybe we can introduce ourselves first.
Yes, please do so. Hang on for 1 second. 10 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yes, please.
Okay. So my name is Annie, and I'm the sophomore of the Department of Foreign Language and Literatures. And also I'm today's host.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, I'm Domi. I'm junior this year and I study urban planning and spatial information departments.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm
Nice to
Leo.
meet you.
Yeah, I'm Leo and major in electronic engineering.
Well, it sounds all exciting. This is the future of Taiwan, I guess.
Thanks.
Thank you. So
I can say a few words about myself if you want to.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Sure.
I actually just joined the State of Green following Easter, so in April. I've only been here for 4 months or so. Prior to this, I was with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, so I was actually living in Singapore for 3.5 years, and in Nepal, in Kathmandu, for a couple of years, and then across Middle East in Istanbul and also in Abu Dhabi. So I've been to Taiwan a couple of times on holiday. I think it's a fantastic country, beautiful countryside, and lovely food as well.
Yeah, but recently the weather is a little bit hard, so hot.
Yeah. How is the weather right now?
There's because of the typhoon, so the weather is very hot because the typhoon is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we went there we flew into Taipei. I think it was in September, maybe.
September.
Then we took the train towards what is called Taroko Gorge on the East Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah, we took the train.
Yeah, the East Coast is beautiful. The Taiwan East Coast, like in the western side, it's a little bit
Yeah,
yeah,
so you
well,
have I'm just trying to find it here. Hualien.
Oh, Hualien.
Yeah, well, it's a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly, but it was a nice trip. Can you tell me a little bit about your organization? I read this letter that you forwarded me.
Oh,
But
sure.
just how did it all came across, and what is your main purpose, and so on and so forth?
So, well, this is the project was funded by the Taiwan government, and it's our mission is to promote the green energy to the young generations, like use the interesting story or the attractive post. And this is how we're doing now. We interview several international organizations and try to get more experience and learning more from their learning experience and try to enrich our Instagram content. And this is what we will do next. We have created the Instagram account called Green Energy Taiwan. And like we can see the yellow rectangle on the left side. We mainly focus on the for mankind of renewable power, and we try to use the memes, the very humorous pictures on the cover, and also the interesting story to strike into the post topic. And this will attract the young people into our accounts to learn something about the sustainable energy. And also at first, we have done the questionnaire, and the questionnaire is planned to know how they gain the sustainable energy knowledge, like it's from the government website or it's from school. And also we want to know what they want to see, what kind of content they want to see in our Instagram. So this red part is what we will conclude in our account post. It will be the basic knowledge about renewable energy. And sometimes we will compare the policy in countries. And also we will introduce some of the developmented case in around the world. Because of the pandemic, because we have plans to host a kind of Green Week in the universities, but because of the pandemic, maybe this schedule have to postpone. And
Yeah.
We have a partner. She has a friend who's doing the podcast, so we plan to cooperate with him. And this one is, I think, the most interesting one. We planned to visit the renewable energy company in Taiwan and shoot a vlog. And then we will upload it on our Instagram and also the YouTube. It's planned to do in the summer vacation, but it's because of COVID-19, we have to postpone too. So
it's a different reality nowadays.
Yeah, but we will try to change it on the online activity.
When did you guys start all of this?
I think it's from the June.
Also, it's fresh out of the can, so to say. This is a brand new project.
Yeah, it's a brand new project.
Yeah. All right, exciting.
Thank you. So it's the brief agenda. We made it before the pandemic. Yeah.
No, I think this is very important. One of the things that, that also actually what I did with the foreign service prior, but also here, is that I think it's important that we help empower youth all over the world in order to grasp the sort of complexity of climate change and also environmental issues, and then ensure that people actually can take a stand on it, because often it's very abstract, and it's a difficult field to really understand. So I think what you're doing here, also trying to narrow down some of the great energy challenges into, for instance, an Instagram account is very important.
Yeah, because we find like the informations on our government website, it's very complicated and include many professional data. So if a people who is not major in this field, they don't want to see that. It's just too hard to understand. So we want to simplify.
And it's an art of simplifying. It's very difficult because you have a political layer, and then you have a technical layer, and then you also have the sector coupling. So how do you merge different technologies to take advantage of that, and how does biodiversity differ from the environment and from climate change and so on? But I think these efforts are very useful. So it's good to see.
So, would you like to share the action of your organizations and the future goal?
Yes. Well, I can start by just telling briefly about who we are and why we got why we are here, basically. So it started back in 2008 when Copenhagen hosted the COP15, so the big UN climate conference here in Copenhagen. And it was actually an effort to see how we could promote Danish solutions globally as part of this big event. So at that point, it was on a project stage, and then we got funding onwards afterwards, and then we sort of developed into this public-private partnership. So on one side, we are funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Industry and Business, so basically the government. And on the other side, we have the 4 Danish business associations, so Confederation of Danish Industries and so on. On top of that, we have 600 private partners in Denmark, and they span from big companies like Danfoss working on energy efficiency, or Vestas and Ørsted, whom are famous for wind turbines, but also very, very small companies providing chargers for electric vehicles or components to district heating and so on. So basically, just in a one-liner, maybe we are sort of the one-stop shop for Danish solutions within climate change and the environment, so green transition. Today we are roughly 20 people, and we are leading all or most of the Danish events across the world. So also the COP in Glasgow and New York Climate Week, and we follow whenever the royal household and whenever the government goes out and promote Danish solutions. So that's one leg. That's the sort of the export angle of it. And then there's also the general, a bit like what you guys do, is to communicate and to convey basically solutions that could foster and accelerate green transition. And that doesn't have to be Danish solutions as such, but also just to spur an excitement and to share policies that could foster other countries to also accelerate their transition. And yeah, myself, I'm heading our press and news department. So it is to engage with medias all over the world and be part of these events and ensure that some of our policies and some of our successful cases are shared with the rest of the world, and to engage in dialogue with partners. So I think that's the short story of who we are at State of Green.
So, like in this process, there might encounter some of the difficulties or the obstacles. So how do you solve this? And
as an organization, or as sort of in Denmark's green transition?
As an organization.
Well, I think if we go back to what we talked about before, it is climate change and environmental issues are always very abstract. So it's always important that you can deliver clear results. And for us as a bridge builder between companies and governments and NGOs and governments and companies and partners all over the world, sometimes it's difficult to say what is the exact value that State of Green brought to this corporation. And I think that took a lot of years to figure out actually how do we measure that and how do we convey, how do we put our efforts into numbers. But overall, our luck is that across the society in Denmark, there is a lot of goodwill for spending money on green transition and for pooling in resources. And that is also our stronghold, that we sit somewhere between the private sector and the public sector. So we have some government funding, but we also work our part for the private sector, and it gives some leverage, of course. So it's actually only been an expansion ever since we started, and that is 13, 14 years ago.
So you have mentioned you are stayed in the media. It's for working in the media for the public promotion. So the work will be including to promote.
Yeah, so we do, for instance, a lot of like op-eds and columns in newspapers all over the world. And then my role is to find different, it could be, top CEOs, ministers, our own director here, and see, okay, should we send a message to an American audience? Then we try to publish an op-ed in, it could be in Houston Chronicle, or it could also be a national, in a national newspaper, for instance. The other way, it's also to invite journalists from all over the world to Denmark, and then we take them on tours. So we have, for instance, a German delegation shortly, and then we have a delegation coming from Latvia and Estonia. And I think we have had more than 1,000 delegations over the years. So that is also a great part of it. Partake in World Knowledge Forum in, as I mentioned before, COP26 and so on.
And I want to ask, Nana, do you have a question?
Say it again? No, sorry.
No. Yeah, no, our team member.
Yes, no, that's true. We installed the first offshore wind farm in 91. Actually, we also had some onshore wind farms back in the 70s. It all links back to our green transition, or Denmark's green transition to begin with. Back in the 70s, you had the global oil crisis, and actually Denmark was severely hit. I think the two countries that felt the hardest hit were Denmark and then Japan. And at that point, we imported 99% of our energy. So we were extremely dependent on oil, of course, and from energy coming in from abroad. The government, for instance, all the light signals around Denmark in the evenings, we wouldn't have any light bulbs, when you walk on the streets, because that took up energy. Cars were banned on Sundays. Also, this period actually spurred the entire love for the bicycle, and it's one of the reasons why we bike so much. So back then, the government took a decision and said, okay, we have to simply shift our entire energy structure of the country to something more renewable, and we have to be self-sufficient. So also as the first country in the world in 1971, we established a ministry for the environment. And we said, okay, we have to shift from black to green, basically. If you look at the obstacles for especially if of offshore, I think it's the main and the most important one is price, of course. When no one has done it before and you're the first country, it's expensive. And you have to have, which is probably the second obstacle, the technical abilities. And then you need to have the public acceptance. The two first ones are very closely linked, because when you have to develop the technology, the price will be high. And if you do it as a first mover, the citizens of Denmark, they basically pay a high price to have green electricity from an offshore wind, because we're the first ones doing it. Then you implement it in Germany and in the UK and in Taiwan and so on and so forth. It will be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But you only do that because you think it's an investment for the country. And we basically decided back in the 70s that this is what we want to do. So that is the main thing. Then the more that you develop, of course, the more technical expertise you got, and then you can export that, and then you get some money back on that. So it's a transaction in that sense. The public acceptance is also an obstacle, and especially there's this, you probably know it, but this term called NIMBY, not in my backyard. People don't want to have wind turbines nearby their homes. They say they're noisy, and then it looks bad. So one of the things we did was that we early on actually said that municipalities and citizens could co-invest or have a share of a wind turbine in their area. And in that way, we sort of fostered an interest for the local community to be an active part of it. So one thing is that they can get green electricity, but they can actually also earn money on having a wind turbine nearby. And in that way, people saw the advantage on different layers when having more and more wind turbines, and that's both onshore and offshore. I think that's the short version of it. Yeah, usually we write our own articles. So we have some student assistants. We actually don't have any interns, but we could have that. But we don't. But we have a handful of student assistants, and they help on that. And then most of us here are either they have a background in communications or marketing or journalism. So everyone is quite, handy when it comes to writing articles and so on. So we help each other out. But of course, we also use contributions from all our partners. So also when the Danish Energy Agency or other partners, it could also be internationally, then we slant it and we put it into a Danish context. So we also use a lot of material that's already published early on.
I want to ask the question is that you have mentioned you let the residents like to invest a little bit in the wind turbine. So this will solve the NIMBY because they can earn some money because of the wind turbine is near their house.
So it's one way of doing it to engage people. So if, let's say, you have a windmill 100 meters away from your home, and you wake up in the morning and you go into your garden and you say, this windmill, this turbine looks ugly. It's producing electricity to the neighborhood, but we could also do that in other ways without me having to look at this big, ugly turbine. But when you wake up in the morning and you can see a turbine and you say, okay, actually this one, I own a part of it. And I can see that my electricity bill is lower because I own a part of it. Sometimes you even get a revenue from it. And then you also get green electricity. That helps you sort of, in lack of better words, fall more in love with the idea of having turbines. And then all of a sudden you also see, we have especially our islands in Denmark. We have a lot of small islands across the country. And then they go together in communities and say, let's invest in 4 new turbines offshore. Maybe it won't look nice from our view when we go down to the beach, but in the long run, it pays back for the entire island and the community, and we can lower our electricity bill. So in this way, we have seen a lot of small community initiatives actually growing from below, and islanders especially saying, let's invest in turbines. So it's not just a government thing saying, now we build a massive offshore park 50 kilometers out from the shore, but it's actually the citizens itself saying, we think this is a good idea. You could do that with all sorts of green energy. It's also district heating, for instance. On islands, they also do the same, or to make improvements of any kind.
So, like you say, there's no internship in your organizations, but there will be the student assistance. And I also want to ask, is there the volunteers to help in your organizations, and how many staff do you currently have?
So we have, I think we are in total, including student assistants, 20 people. Our CEO, and then we have 4 overall divisions. So we have marketing and communication is one, then we have international partnerships, then we have our national, like Danish focus, then the 4th is press and news, which I am heading. And then we have 5 student assistants. But actually we don't have volunteers and interns. I think it's I actually don't know, but I reckon it's a policy that they agreed on before I joined, that we would like to pay for the work that people contribute with. So instead of having interns, we have student assistants because they get paid for it. But we only have, but we are mainly Danes. We have 1 German lady, and then we have a Chinese lady in charge of our China desk. The rest of us are Danes. Then we have front posts, so we have people sitting in New York under something called Danish Cleantech Hub. We also have a very close cooperation with all the Danish embassies all over the world. And a lot of the material that they use in their promotion and branding, and when they go out and talk about Denmark's green transition, a lot of the material comes from State of Green.
So, Tommy, do you have a question?
Not really now. Just let me think about that.
Okay, so I find there's very foreign students like work in your organizations, and they like work from home, or they're in the Danish now.
So everyone is in office at the moment. Not right now because it's summer holidays. So hopefully most people are enjoying the sun and relaxing. But usually all of us are in office right now. And we have been so for the last month. So everyone is basically vaccinated. Not everyone, but I would say after summer, most people are vaccinated in Denmark, and we have eased all restrictions, which means that everyone can go to work again.
So like, as for a college student, what can we contribute to the issues of the renewable energies? Like we want to promote it. So what suggestion do you have in managing a platform for the young generation to make them concerned on the related topic?
I think it's important to strike a balance between communicating in an easy and simple way when it comes to this area, but also be factual and correct, of course. Because there's a lot of opinions about what is good for the climate, what is good for the environment, and vice versa, what is bad. And because it's so political, I think it's important to be clear, to stay to the facts, of course, and then try to communicate it in a simple way. I don't know how social media works per se in Taiwan. So whether it's video clips or audio bites or it's stills and long texts. But I think that, of course, when you use a media like Instagram, there's actually a lot of great photos and what is it called? Oh, it comes to me in a second. But a lot of great photos and videos about bigger sites that you can use. For instance, we make a lot of material and resharing that, for instance, and then slanting it to a Taiwanese perspective and get someone to comment on it. Biodiversity is one of the areas that I think will be the main discussion over the coming years, and that is something people can relate to. Everyone has a love and care for animals, of course, and species, and I think that will be an even bigger topic than probably environmental ones in the next 10 years. And at the end of the day, when you do something, then think about, is this something I would spend time on myself? So if you produce a post and you say, well, at the end of the day, I wouldn't focus on it myself, then 9 out of 10 times no one else would. That's my guess.
So we will have to try to make the post diverse, plentiful, and the most important thing is to be neutral.
Yeah, I think it's important to be neutral, of course. At least if the objective is to provide information to people and for them to take their own stand on it. Because the political aspect of it is massive, and basically all big organizations and politicians, they have a stand on it, and they have different reasons for having an interest for doing so. But I think it's to try to be neutral. But it is a very complex area because you have the technical part of it and the political part of it. And then, yeah, showcase some nice examples. In the questions that you forwarded me, for instance, there was one question about the energy islands in Denmark. And that is part of our so we made a climate law in 2019 after we got a new government. And one of their sort of flagship projects is to establish 2 energy islands that will help us reduce our emissions by 70%. And that is probably the most ambitious in the world. These islands, well, one of them in the North Sea is the first of its kind ever. So it's an artificial island that we're building 100 kilometers offshore. And essentially it could be the start of a new era for offshore wind. So when you build an island so far from the shore, and then you make a grid, so meaning that right now we also have a lot of offshore wind parks, and they just have a connection to Denmark. So all the electricity or all the power produced will go to Denmark. And some days we don't have the same demand as we have other days. But when you can place this in the middle of the ocean, you can also have grids going to Germany, to Belgium, to the Netherlands, to Denmark, of course, to the UK, and so on. And then constantly you can transfer this supply based on supply and demand in different countries. And then, of course, everyone's talking about now is the new technology called Power to X, which is basically where you take excess supply or excess power and transform that into green hydrogen, so fuel for aviation and for shipping. And we are planning that's at least the hope that once we have this energy island, or these two energy islands, all airplanes and all ships coming to Denmark will be fueled by green hydrogen from these kind of technologies. So it could be a game changer, but it's also I think we used to call it initially when we launched it, call it a moonshot, because no one has the final technology yet. Everyone agrees that this is possible and you can do so, but no one has the answer yet. So it's something we have to develop. But the plan is that by 2030, so that's in little more than 8 years, this would be able to supply 10 million households across Europe with electricity. So it is a game changer.
Okay, thanks for the example, and it's very useful. And so there will be the last question. If we have the chance, how can we cooperate in the futures, like on the media or on any way of side?
We could, I think by so Taiwan is of course one of the markets that we look at. There is a lot of Danish companies having interests in Taiwan, and I know the potential for offshore wind is huge in Taiwan. So events, for instance, we are happy to participate in talks with if someone is hosting events. It could be with private partners, but also on a government level, or anything that's related to green transition, basically, by sharing news. So if you guys come along a project where Danish partners involved, then we would be happy to write an article or communicate that in one way or another. And I know that we have that all the time. And of course, we hope that some of the material that we produce is interesting enough for other people to share it and get inspired. So anything that we produce, you are more than happy to, or you're more than welcome to share.
Okay, thank you very much. So do you have the Instagram accounts, your organizations?
Actually, we don't. We are using Twitter and
Twitter.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
And then we use, let me just think. Of course, in China, we have the local social medias, but we don't use Instagram and neither Facebook.
Yeah, I think Twitter and LinkedIn is more popular in Europe.
At least for our target group.
Yeah.
So most Danes are on Facebook. I think they are all over the world, but we want to reach out to decision makers at the end of the day, and be that public or private, and then of course the corporates and those who are decision makers and thought leaders. And if we want to do so, we have decided that Twitter and LinkedIn is probably the preferred channels.
So this will be the today content. Thanks for accepting our interview.
Of
Nice
course.
to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to see
You
you.
too. And then please, once you're up and running and you start to produce some content, feel free to send it over, especially if it has a Danish angle. Then we are happy to see it.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe with
Yeah, because like in your country, it's now about the summer vacation. So
Yes. I'm going on holidays tomorrow for 3 weeks.
have a nice
Wow.
trip.
So I'm wrapping up after tomorrow. I'm wrapping up and closing my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoy your great time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
best of
very
luck
much.
with your project. It was nice to chat with all of you.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
Hmm?
Thanks a lot.
Also, it's
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank you.
Of course.
I'll see you
Take
again.
care,
a
everyone.
good time.
Okay.
Yeah, take
Have a
good
good
care.
one. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you.